welcome to New York News. I'm Amy Parry, and tonight we bring you breaking news of criminal happenings in the 5 Points area of the city. I'm here with strain theory specialist Amy Hurd, who brings us the latest.
Amy Hurd here, specialised in the study of strain theory, reporting from LRC Studios. Robert Merton and John Tierney have outlined that deviant behaviour is seen as something going wrong. Deviant behaviour is a result of strain on an individual to achieve cultural goals such as the American dream. News that individuals have found illegal ways of achieving these goals is shocking and has hit the news. Take a look at this clip we are going to show you. Amsterdam, an Irish immigrant, is robbing from dead people at the dock. He would then steal these materials to sell them for money or gain respect from bill cutting. Take a look, it's shocking.
Oh, you damn fool, take him! What in the hell for? Look at my glims. I said no less than 15.
Wait, is this fresh?
4 hours most.
The Bull Gang slaughters. A fresh outrage in the 5 Points. It's a notice you can be proud of.
Thank you.
Low thing. To do that to a body. Low.
Why? They could have left that ship with nothing. Instead, they made the Police Gazette, a periodical of notes.
This clip fits perfectly with this idea. The Irish immigrants came to America to get better life through better jobs, and this has not happened. Amy Hurd here, reporting from the LRC. Back to the studio.
Thanks, Amy. We're now joined by Chicago skills specialist Rachel McFadden. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Rachel McFadden, an expert in the Chicago School Model, which is based on social ecology. With reference to what is going on in the New York area, we see the relationship between the people and their environment. Within the Chicago School Model, it has been established that there are 5 different zones, including the zone of transition. This is apparent that this is where the gangs live. Where the gangs live in New York, we see an influx in the population due to the poor conditions leading to deaths, the arrival of Irish immigrants, which is 15,000 every day, and men being drafted for conscription. This means that there is an ever-changing population, which is traditionally associated with the Chicago School Model. The quality of life in the gangs' own environment is very low. The area is filled with the poor, the mentally ill, and delinquents. We see that there is a low social control. For example, the authority of the police is basically non-existent to the gangs. Due to this low quality of life, they are forced to steal anything that they can in order to survive. We see this in the next clip, how desperate the gangs become for food and valuables as Amsterdam Valiant and Johnny Scirocco risk their lives to ransack a house that is on fire.
There's nothing left. Go back to the bar, you bum. Stop it, for God's sake, they're taking everything. Hold your time, Johnny, let's get out of here.
Johnny! Help! Johnny! Help! Help! Help!
According to Shaw and Kay, delinquency increases as you go through the zones, which becomes apparent as we look at the inner city people and their environment. We see this in the next clip as Johnny goes into the city where there is idyllic surroundings compared to the slums that the gangs live in.
Everywhere you went, people talked about the draft. Now, you could buy your way out for $300. But who had $300? For us, it might as well have been $3 million. The recruiters, they was too scared of the gangs to come after us. Besides, we never dreamt the war would ever touch New York.
Good morning, sir.
You! Don't you run into me.
Fair enough.
I said don't run into me.
Sorry. Everything in place?
Seems so.
Well, then I leave you in the grace and favor of God.
Where the gangs live, it is characterised by Graham and Clark as a zone of disorder and potential criminality, which can be known as an area of social disorganisation. It has been concluded by Shaw and Kay that delinquency within the zone of transition is a product of the desperate economic conditions and the locally based traditions. Selin highlights that this leads to the delinquency within the 5 Points being a product of cultural conflicts between the Irish immigrants and the Americans. It also seems as though the cultural conflicts tends to have a direct effect on the second generation of juveniles, as Amsterdam Valiant comes in and takes his father's place in the ongoing conflict and also to revenge his father's death. This has been Richard McFadden reporting for the LRC. Back to the studio.
We're joined by Emily Payton, a radical and critical criminologist who will give her view on what is happening with the gangs of New York.
Hi, I'm Emily Payton, and I'm here to explain my stance on this news story. I'm an expert on the theory of criminology known as radical and critical criminology. The story of the gangs of New York is unfortunately not one which stands alone, unfortunately not one which will never happen again. I am going to explain today the way in which my theory and its assumptions can be applied to the story we've seen so far. The story which unfolded in Lower Manhattan's 5 Points is a product of just one thing: inequality. As radical criminologists, we see crime as one of many products of oppression within society.
Well, sir, that depends on what you say.
Would you call me reckless if I said you were the prettiest girl in New York?
Only New York. This is my stop.
May I walk with you a little then?
That, sir, would be too bold.
In this footage, it can be seen that Jenny appears to be a middle-class woman in order to be taken seriously by the richer people in society, when in fact she has to commit crime in order to get by. Capitalist law facilitates and conceals crimes of domination and oppression according to us radical criminologists. The focus on the behaviour of the subordinated classes deflects attention from crimes of the powerful. This is shown throughout the story, where Bill the Butcher and his followers frequently commit terrible crimes.
Don't fuck the African niggas! The African!
The angriest talk was of the new Conscription Act, the first draft.
A radical criminologist known as Bonger in 1969 has commented that hardly any act is punished if it does not injure the interests of the dominant class. The operation of the law in capitalist society acts to punish the poor whilst allowing the wealthy to go on and act in selfish and greedy ways without fears of punishment. Bill the Butcher is a central feature of the story, as shown in the previous clip. He is clearly a horrible man and has no morals, is selfish and treats others with disregard and disrespect. He, however, seems to get away with this because of his power. Hence, as radical criminologists, we argue that law and punishment is connected to a system of social inequality as a means of producing and perpetuating this inequality. Radical criminologists maintain that the working class or proletariat are disillusioned by the state. They are unaware of the oppression that capitalist society places on them.
May God greet me as a friend.
When the state uses death by hanging as an appropriate measure to ensure they, and I quote, make an example of them, even though they have done nothing wrong. Capitalism creates class conflict and contradictions, as is seen in the story in the fights between Irish immigrants and the natives.
Who holds sway over the 5 Points? Us natives, born rightwise to this fine land, or the foreign hordes defiling it?
With the ancient laws of combat, I accept the challenge of the so-called natives. You plague our people at every turn. But from this day out, you shall plague us no more. For let it be known that the hand that tries to strike us from this land shall be swiftly cut down.
In short, the delinquency and crime in the city is a product of cultural conflicts between the Irish and the natives. It further seems as though the cultural conflict tends to have a direct effect on the second generation, as Amsterdam comes in and takes his father's place in the ongoing conflict and to revenge his father's death. A group of radical criminologists has further held that in a class society, youthful deviance is most profoundly lodged in the refusal to accept and the struggle against relations with authorities which administer on the state's behalf institutions based on a rule-bound set of interests, which are ultimately those of a capitalist ruling class. This is clearly shown.
Upstairs! Get the women upstairs!
That last clip concludes my debate, as it shows in the film when the New York City draft riots break out and many upper-class citizens are attacked by the rioters. Hence, radical criminologists maintain that crime is a response to capitalism and its contradictions.
We will now hear from Nefra Harley, who specialises in delinquent boys and gang culture.
Good afternoon, I'm Nefra Harley, a specialist criminologist and sociologist in delinquent boys and gangs, reporting from LRC Studios. Sociologist Albert Cohen and I, best known for our subcultural theory of delinquent gangs, suggest that similar ideas tend to arise amongst people who experience similar social circumstances. We believe that delinquent youths lack the means to achieve social status along conventional lines, resulting in the formation of gangs that invert the conventional expectations in terms of which status is achieved. Deviance arises because individuals conform to the values and norms of particular groups which have their own behaviour code. In this particular case, encouraging and rewarding criminal behaviour. It's not that subcultures are completely different from the rest of society, but the subculture is sufficiently different from the culture of society in general that leads them to commit criminal acts. We're currently in a time of political corruption, and due to the city's evolution into a cultural melting pot, the violent rise of gang power continues in New York City. Notorious William Cutting, better known as Bill the Butcher for his knife skills, formed the Native Americans gang in 1846 when Irish immigrants poured into the city's neighbourhood of the Five Points. British-born citizens of the US did then and still do now openly display their resentment for the new arrivals. In turn, Priest Valiant formed the gang the Dead Rabbits, in opposed to the natives. These gangs became stable, structured and came in hierarchies. After a bloody clash left Valiant dead, his son went missing, ending up in a brutal reform home before returning to the Five Points now in 1862 as Amsterdam to seek vengeance on his father's killer. It appears that the Irish evidently have no social status in the city and are used for voting purposes only. There's a resistance for ethnic diversity in this city. However, respect appears within gangs. William Cutting, for example, is well respected within his community by his fellow natives and top of the hierarchy. Society is based around middle-class means, values and goals. Therefore, lower-class Irish and African-American citizens became isolated, meaning that the outnumbered citizens don't have the necessary values to meet middle-class goals. In regards to the current events surrounding the New York's Five Points gang war, may I suggest that the natives gang formed due to the need for power, social status and respect in regards to immigrants trespassing on their territory, resulting in the formation of the Dead Rabbits out of dissatisfaction, frustration and failure due to lacking the means and values to gain respect in the usual manner. Respect is attributed to successful criminals, in this case William Cutting. Those in his delinquent subculture take pleasure in other people's disapproval and suffering as a result of the deviant behaviour. Since returning to the Five Points, Amsterdam appeared to join the natives with the sole purpose of seeking vengeance against Cutting, gaining his respect by conforming to the norms before his true identity was revealed. Reports state that Amsterdam quoted, "Get us all together, we ain't got a gang, we've got an army." In turn, violence struck again for the final time between the Native Americans and the Irish, where notorious William Cutting was butchered in his own tradition. The question of whether or not gang violence will end is tricky, and does the social status and respect now lie with Amsterdam? But who knows? Reports will be continued in the aftermath. Now that's all from me. Thank you and good day. Back to you, Amy, in the studio.